It's 15,000 years ago. You're walking through a forest when suddenly, massive yellow eyes lock onto yours from the shadows. 10-inch fangs glisten in the dim light as 400 pounds of pure predator crouches, ready to pounce. This is Smilodon fatalis, the saber-toothed tiger. There are no guns, no knives, no modern weapons. Just you, your bare hands, and one of history's most feared apex predators. Can you survive? What would actually happen in this life-or-death encounter? The answer might shock you. Welcome to Weird Histories. Subscribe now and comment your favorite historical topic below. We read every single one and create videos based on your suggestions. The saber-toothed tiger wasn't actually a tiger at all. Smilodon fatalis belonged to an entirely different branch of the cat family tree, one that split off millions of years before modern big cats evolved. But calling it a tiger barely scratches the surface of what made this creature so terrifying. Standing 3 feet tall at the shoulder and stretching nearly 6 feet from nose to tail, the saber-tooth was built like a living tank. Males could weigh up to 440 pounds. That's roughly the size of a male lion, but with a completely different body plan. Where lions are built for speed and agility, saber-tooths were engineered for raw, devastating power. Their most famous feature, those iconic saber teeth, weren't just for show. These curved daggers could grow up to 7 inches long, protruding well below their lower jaw even when their mouth was closed. But here's what most people don't realize. Those teeth were incredibly fragile. They weren't designed for the crushing, bone-breaking bites we see in modern big cats. Instead, they were precision instruments, surgical tools meant for one specific purpose: delivering a killing blow to massive prey. The saber-toothed skull tells the real story of its hunting strategy. Massive muscle attachment points show us that these cats had neck muscles like steel cables, capable of driving those fangs deep into flesh with incredible force. Their jaw could only open to about 120 degrees, much wider than any modern cat, specifically to accommodate those oversized canines. But the teeth were just part of the package. Saber-tooths had front limbs that would make a bodybuilder jealous. Their shoulders and forelimbs were massively overdeveloped, with muscle mass that dwarfed anything we see in today's big cats. These weren't just strong. They were built to grab onto struggling megafauna and hold them down while delivering that fatal bite. Fossil evidence shows us that these cats shared their world with ground sloths the size of small cars, massive bison, early horses, and even young mammoths. They didn't hunt rabbits and deer. They specialized in taking down animals that could easily crush a human being, and they did it regularly for thousands of years. Modern forensic analysis of saber-tooth remains has revealed just how perfectly adapted these predators were for their deadly profession. Computer modeling of their bite mechanics shows something that would give any human nightmares. While their bite force wasn't as strong as a modern lion is, their killing technique was far more sophisticated and lethal. Those famous fangs worked like guided missiles. The saber-tooth would use its powerful forelimbs to wrestle prey to the ground, then position its head with surgical precision. The kill wasn't a crushing bite to the throat like we see in modern big cats. Instead, the saber-tooth would drive its fangs directly into major blood vessels, the carotid artery, jugular vein, or trachea, causing massive hemorrhaging or suffocation within seconds. Researchers studying saber-tooth hunting behavior have found that these cats were patient, methodical killers. They didn't rely on explosive speed like cheetahs or ambush tactics like leopards. Instead, they were persistent predators that would track, corner, and systematically take down prey much larger than themselves. Their sensory equipment was equally impressive. Large eye sockets indicate excellent night vision, while their broad nasal passages suggest a highly developed sense of smell. They could track prey across vast distances and hunt effectively in low-light conditions, exactly when most large herbivores were most vulnerable. But perhaps most terrifying was their intelligence. Saber-tooths lived and hunted in family groups, with evidence suggesting they cared for injured pack members and shared kills. This wasn't a solitary ambush predator. It was a coordinated pack hunter with the intelligence to plan attacks and the social structure to execute complex hunting strategies. Paleontologists have found sabertooth remains with healed fractures and injuries that would have been fatal without group care. This tells us these cats were capable of long-term planning, cooperation, and possibly even primitive medical care. They weren't just physically formidable. They were smart, social, and absolutely committed to their role as apex predators. The fossil record shows that sabertooths dominated their ecosystems for over 2 million years, successfully hunting everything from bison to baby mammoths. They were the undisputed kings of Ice Age America, and they earned that title through a combination of raw power, sophisticated hunting techniques, and pack intelligence that modern humans can barely comprehend. The sabertooth's body was essentially a biological weapons platform, with every feature optimized for maximum lethality. Recent biomechanical studies have revealed details about their anatomy that make them even more terrifying than early paleontologists imagined. Their claws were retractable like modern cats, but significantly larger and more robust. Fossil evidence shows claw sheaths up to 4 inches long, with the actual claws potentially reaching 5 or 6 inches. These weren't just climbing tools. They were grappling hooks designed to sink deep into flesh and hold on to struggling prey that could weigh over a ton. The sabertooth's spine and hip structure reveal another deadly adaptation. Unlike modern big cats that kill with quick, powerful bites, sabertooths were built for sustained grappling. Their lower back and hip muscles were massively developed to provide stability while wrestling with enormous prey. They could maintain their grip and position for extended periods, wearing down even the largest animals through sheer persistence. Their tail, thick and muscular, served as a counterbalance during attacks. When a sabertooth latched onto a giant ground sloth or cave bear, that tail helped maintain balance and leverage while the predator maneuvered for the killing blow. Every aspect of their anatomy worked together like a perfectly designed killing machine. Perhaps most chilling is what we've learned about their success rate. Fossil sites across North America show evidence of saber-tooth kills that include some of the most dangerous animals of the Ice Age. They successfully hunted American lions, giant short-faced bears, and massive bison, animals that could easily kill multiple humans without breaking a sweat. Tooth wear patterns on saber-tooth fossils indicate they regularly fed on bone marrow, suggesting they had the tools and technique to crack open the largest bones of their prey. This wasn't opportunistic scavenging. This was systematic, efficient butchering that left nothing to waste. The sobering reality is that saber-tooths evolved specifically to kill animals far more powerful and dangerous than humans. They spent millions of years perfecting their craft against creatures that make modern African megafauna look small and docile. Every saber-tooth was a graduate of the most brutal evolutionary program imaginable, and their graduation requirement was the ability to single-handedly take down prehistoric giants. Let's be brutally honest about what you're working with as a modern human facing a saber-toothed tiger. The average person today weighs between 150 and 200 pounds, stands about 5.5 to 6 feet tall, and has the muscle density of someone who spends most of their time sitting at desks and staring at screens. Your bite force maxes out at around 160 pounds per square inch. Impressive for opening pickle jars, pathetic against an animal that routinely crushed the bones of megafauna. Your top running speed, if you're in excellent shape, might hit 15 miles per hour for a very short distance. The saber-tooth, despite its stocky build, could likely match or exceed that speed while carrying 4 times your body weight in pure muscle. Your claws are fingernails. Your teeth are designed for an omnivorous diet that includes a lot of cooked vegetables. Your natural weapons are so inadequate that our species developed tools and fire specifically because we realized early on that we couldn't survive without them. But the physical mismatch goes deeper than just size and strength. Human reaction time averages around 250 milliseconds for a simple visual stimulus. That's a quarter of a second between seeing something and responding to it. In a life-or-death encounter with a predator that has been honed by millions of years of evolution to kill quickly and efficiently, a quarter second might as well be an eternity. Your bones are hollow and relatively fragile compared to the dense, robust skeletal structure of a saber-tooth. A single swipe from those massive claws could potentially break ribs, damage organs, or cause catastrophic bleeding. Meanwhile, sabertooths were built to absorb punishment from animals that could kick hard enough to shatter trees. Your cardiovascular system, while efficient for endurance activities, isn't designed for the explosive bursts of strength needed in close combat. Adrenaline can give you temporary superhuman strength, but that boost is limited and short-lived. The sabertooth's entire muscular system was engineered for sustained, powerful exertion during hunting and killing. The cold mathematical reality is that you're essentially a soft, slow, weak primate trying to fight a purpose-built killing machine that outweighs you by 200 pounds and comes equipped with natural weapons that make medieval torture devices look gentle. Now let's talk about how this encounter would actually happen, because the scenario matters enormously. Sabertooths weren't mindless monsters that charged at everything they saw. They were calculated, patient hunters that specialized in ambush tactics and surprise attacks. You wouldn't see this coming. Sabertooths were masters of stealth, capable of moving silently through dense vegetation despite their massive size. Their padded paws and careful movement patterns allowed them to get within striking distance of prey animals that had evolved specifically to detect and avoid predators. By the time you realized a sabertooth was in your vicinity, it would already be in position to attack. These cats didn't announce their presence with roars or displays of aggression like modern big cats sometimes do. They relied on surprise, overwhelming force, and the element of confusion to take down prey before it could mount an effective defense. The attack would come from your blind spot, behind, to the side, or from above, if there was elevated terrain. Sabertooths were excellent climbers despite their bulk, capable of launching themselves from rocks, fallen logs, or low tree branches. Your first indication of danger would likely be 400 pounds of muscle and claws hitting you at full speed. Human peripheral vision and spatial awareness, while decent by primate standards, are no match for a predator that evolved to exploit the blind spots and weaknesses of much more alert prey animals. Elk, bison, and ground sloths all have better sensory equipment than humans, and sabertooths killed them regularly. Your modern lifestyle makes this worse. Most people today have compromised hearing from constant noise exposure, reduced night vision from artificial lighting, and degraded spatial awareness from spending most of their time in controlled, predictable environments. Your ancestors 15,000 years ago would have been more alert and aware than you are, and even they struggled to survive encounters with apex predators. The sabertooth's attack wouldn't give you time to think, plan, or use your supposed intelligence advantage. From the moment of contact, you'd be dealing with sensory overload, massive pain, physical damage, and the overwhelming terror of being attacked by something that your primal brain recognizes as an apex predator. This isn't a fair fight. It's not even a fight. It's a predation event, and you're the prey. Here's something most people don't consider when they fantasize about fighting prehistoric predators: the psychological impact of suddenly becoming prey. Humans are apex predators in our modern world. We're used to being at the top of the food chain, making decisions, controlling our environment. That psychological framework completely collapses when you're face to face with something that views you as dinner. The moment you lock eyes with a sabertooth, your brain would be flooded with stress hormones that haven't been triggered by a real predator threat in generations. Your fight or flight response, calibrated for modern stressors like job interviews and traffic jams, would be completely overwhelmed by the reality of facing an animal specifically designed to kill you. Prey animals experience something called tonic immobility, a state where they become temporarily paralyzed when caught by a predator. While humans don't usually experience this to the same degree, the psychological shock of a predator attack can cause similar effects. Time distortion, tunnel vision, auditory exclusion, and loss of fine motor control are all documented responses to extreme predator encounters. Your decision-making ability, which humans pride themselves on, would be severely compromised. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for complex thinking and planning, essentially shuts down during extreme stress. Meanwhile, the limbic system takes over, flooding your body with hormones designed for simple, immediate responses: run, fight, or freeze. But here's the cruel irony. None of those responses work against a sabertooth. You can't outrun it. You can't overpower it. Freezing just makes you an easier target. The psychological responses that helped your ancestors survive encounters with smaller predators become liabilities when facing something this powerful and sophisticated. Modern humans also lack the psychological conditioning that our ancestors had. They lived with the constant awareness that death could come from any direction at any moment. They developed mental frameworks for processing extreme violence and mortal danger. Most people today have never seen sudden, brutal death, let alone experience the kind of raw, primal terror that comes with being hunted. By the time you processed what was happening, the encounter would likely be over. Your last conscious thought might be surprised that something so powerful and deadly had been hiding in the shadows, waiting for exactly this moment. Wait. Before we write humanity's obituary, let's talk about why our species survived the Ice Age in the first place. Humans didn't just coexist with saber-toothed tigers. We outlasted them. While these apex predators went extinct around 10,000 years ago, we're still here, having conquered every environment on Earth. That happened for reasons that go far beyond tools and fire. Your greatest weapon isn't your fists or your teeth, it's your brain. Human intelligence isn't just about solving math problems or building technology. It's about rapid pattern recognition, threat assessment, and adaptive problem-solving under extreme pressure. When our ancestors encountered predators, they didn't try to outmuscle them, they outsmarted them. Humans possess something called cognitive flexibility, the ability to rapidly switch between different strategies when the first one isn't working. A saber-tooth has one strategy: ambush, grapple, kill. If that doesn't work immediately, they don't have a backup plan. You do. Your brain can process multiple potential escape routes, hiding spots, improvised weapons, and defensive strategies simultaneously. Your bipedal stance, while making you slower than quadrupedal animals, gives you several advantages in a defensive situation. You can quickly change directions, throw objects accurately while moving, and use your arms independently of your locomotion. These might seem like small advantages, but in a survival situation, small advantages can mean the difference between life and death. Human endurance is legendary in the animal kingdom. While you can't outrun a saber-tooth in a sprint, you can potentially outlast one. Big cats are built for short bursts of explosive activity followed by long periods of rest. If you could somehow survive the initial attack and keep moving, the saber-tooth might not be able to maintain pursuit indefinitely. Your hands are extraordinary tools, capable of fine motor control that no other animal possesses. You can manipulate objects, tie knots, create leverage, and use tools in ways that would be impossible for a saber-tooth. Even without weapons, your ability to grab, throw, and manipulate your environment gives you options that pure predators don't have. Most importantly, humans are incredibly difficult to kill cleanly. Our pain tolerance, when pumped full of adrenaline, is remarkable. People have survived bear attacks, shark attacks, and other predator encounters that should have been fatal, simply because they refused to die quietly. Let's talk about something that does not show up in nature documentaries, but is absolutely crucial to understanding predator-prey dynamics: the power of desperate, intelligent resistance. Saber-tooths evolved to kill animals that relied primarily on size, speed, or herd protection. They weren't adapted to deal with prey that could think, plan, and fight back with tools and tactics. Humans under extreme stress can perform seemingly impossible feats. Emergency adrenaline can temporarily increase your strength by 15-20%, dramatically reduce your perception of pain, and accelerate your reflexes. More importantly, it can unlock a level of creative problem-solving that doesn't exist under normal circumstances. Historical records document numerous cases of humans surviving attacks from large predators through improvised tactics. People have choked attacking animals with their bare hands, used clothing as shields and ropes, gouged eyes, and targeted vulnerable spots that larger animals can't effectively protect. The key is that humans don't just fight, they fight smart. Your clothing, something saber-tooths never encountered, could actually work in your favor. A thick jacket can provide some protection against claws and teeth, while also giving you something to wrap around your arm as a shield or to stuff into a predator's mouth. Your shoes could become weapons, your belt a garrote, your shirt a net or blindfold. Sabertooths were also vulnerable in ways that might not be immediately obvious. Those famous fangs, while deadly, were also fragile. If you could somehow force them to bite down on something hard, a rock, a piece of wood, your shoe, there's a chance they could break or damage their teeth, immediately reducing their ability to deliver a killing blow. Their eyes, like all cats, were relatively large and vulnerable. A well-placed thumb or stick could potentially blind or disorient the animal long enough to create an escape opportunity. Their nose, ears, and other soft tissues could be targeted with improvised weapons or even bare hands. The sabertooth's hunting strategy also had inherent weaknesses. They relied on quickly overwhelming their prey. If you could somehow survive the initial seconds of an attack and make the encounter drag on, you'd be fighting outside their evolutionary comfort zone. Extended combat wasn't their specialty. Quick kills were. Here's where human intelligence really shines: our ability to turn environmental factors into advantages. A sabertooth sees terrain as either good for ambushing or bad for ambushing. You can see terrain as a complex tactical landscape full of potential weapons, shields, and escape routes. Water could be your salvation. Sabertooths, despite being powerful, weren't particularly fond of swimming. If you could reach a river or lake, you might force the predator to abandon the hunt rather than follow you into an environment where its advantages are reduced. Even a small stream could provide escape if you were willing to risk hypothermia over certain death. Fire, even without matches, isn't impossible if you know basic friction techniques. Every human culture developed fire-making methods, and some can produce flame in under a minute with practice. Sabertooths, like most predators, had an instinctual fear of fire that goes back millions of years. Even the threat of fire, smoke from friction, sparks from struck rocks, could potentially deter an attack. Your ability to climb and use tools together creates opportunities that don't exist for quadrupedal predators. While sabertooths could climb, they couldn't manipulate objects while climbing. You could potentially break branches to create obstacles, dislodge rocks, or position yourself where the predator's size and weight work against it. Noise could be a weapon. Humans can produce sounds that don't exist in nature: whistles, shouts, and calls that might confuse or startle a predator. While this seems minimal, many successful predator defenses rely on making the hunt more trouble than it's worth. The psychological element works both ways. While you might be terrified, the sabertooth would also be dealing with unprecedented behavior from its prey. Predators rely on predictable responses from their targets. When prey starts fighting back with tactics they've never encountered, it creates uncertainty and hesitation. Most critically, your goal isn't to win a fight. It's to survive long enough for the sabertooth to decide you're not worth the effort. Predators in the wild rarely engage in prolonged battles unless absolutely necessary. They can't risk injury that might prevent them from hunting successfully in the future. If you can make yourself expensive to kill, you might just live to tell the story. The most likely encounter scenario is also the most terrifying: a classic sabertooth ambush. You're moving through their territory, completely unaware of their presence, when suddenly 400 pounds of predator launches itself at you from concealment. This is how most sabertooth attacks would have happened, and it's the scenario where your survival chances are lowest. In an ambush, you have zero preparation time and maximum disadvantage. The sabertooth has chosen the time, place, and angle of attack specifically to maximize their chances of a quick kill. They've been watching you, studying your movement patterns, and waiting for the perfect moment when you're most vulnerable. The attack comes from behind, or from the side, targeting your neck and shoulders, the same killing zones they used on prehistoric megafauna. Those massive forepaws are designed to knock you down and pin you while the fangs go to work. Your first sensation would be crushing weight and searing pain as claws dig deep into flesh and muscle. Your survival depends entirely on what happens in the first 3 seconds. If the sabertooth achieves a solid grip and gets those fangs positioned correctly, the encounter is over. Your only hope is if something goes wrong with their attack. If they slip on wet ground, if their initial grab doesn't secure a solid hold, or if you manage to fall in a way that prevents them from getting proper leverage. Even then, your options are limited. Rolling, thrashing, and making yourself as difficult to hold as possible might create a brief window of opportunity. The sabertooth's hunting strategy relies on controlled, systematic killing. If you can turn the encounter into chaos, you might survive long enough to find an escape route. Your best bet is targeting their eyes or nose with anything available: fingers, elbows, rocks, sticks. The goal is not to win a fight, but to create enough pain and confusion that the predator releases its grip, and you can attempt to flee or find cover. Environmental factors become crucial. If you're near water, steep terrain, or dense vegetation, you might be able to use these features to break free from the initial attack. The key is recognizing that this isn't a battle. It's a desperate attempt to escape a predation event that's already begun. A more survivable scenario involves stumbling into sabertooth territory when the cat isn't actively hunting. Maybe you've accidentally gotten too close to a den site, kill cache, or resting area. In this situation, the sabertooth's primary goal isn't necessarily to eat you. They want you gone. Territorial displays in big cats follow predictable patterns, and sabertooths likely behave similarly to modern relatives. You might get warning signs: low growls, visible positioning, or aggressive posturing before an actual attack. This gives you precious seconds to respond appropriately. The worst thing you can do is run immediately. Running triggers predatory instincts in almost all cats and guarantees a chase response. Instead, you need to make yourself appear as non-threatening as possible while slowly creating distance. Avoid direct eye contact, which cats interpret as a challenge. Keep your movements slow and deliberate. Back away slowly while making yourself appear larger. Raise your arms, spread your jacket or shirt. Stand on elevated ground if possible. Speak in a calm, steady voice, not to communicate with the cat, but to keep yourself from panicking and making sudden movements. Look for escape routes that don't involve turning your back and running. Water sources, climbable terrain, or narrow spaces where the sabertooth size works against them. Your goal is to leave their territory without triggering a full attack response. If you have anything to throw, use it strategically, not as a weapon, but as a distraction or deterrent. Throw objects near the cat, not at it, to create noise and confusion without appearing directly threatening. The goal is to encourage the sabertooth to withdraw, rather than engage. This scenario plays to your strengths as an intelligent problem-solving species. You can read body language, assess the situation, and choose tactics that reduce rather than escalate the threat level. The sabertooth, while dangerous, isn't necessarily committed to killing you if you can convince them that you're not a threat to their territory or resources. Success depends on your ability to think clearly under pressure and resist the natural human impulses that would turn a territorial encounter into a predation event. The deadliest scenario isn't facing a hungry adult sabertooth. It's encountering a parent protecting cubs. Parental aggression in big cats is absolute and uncompromising. A protective sabertooth parent will fight to the death to defend their offspring, using every weapon in their considerable arsenal without regard for their own safety. Sabertooth cubs were likely hidden in dens, caves, or dense vegetation while parents hunted. If you accidentally stumble near a den site, you're not dealing with a calculating predator weighing risk versus reward. You're facing a parent who views you as an existential threat to their genetic legacy. The attack will be immediate, violent, and sustained. No warning displays, no territorial posturing, no opportunity for de-escalation. The parent sabertooth will attack with the full intention of eliminating the threat completely, and they won't stop until either you're dead or they are. Parent predators also tend to fight more emotionally than strategically, which could potentially create openings if you can maintain enough presence of mind to exploit them. The key is recognizing the situation quickly. If you hear cubs crying or see signs of a recent kill near a potential den site, you need to retreat immediately and quietly. Don't investigate. Don't try to get a better look. Don't do anything that could be interpreted as approaching the cubs. if you've already triggered a parental response, your survival depends on creating maximum distance as quickly as possible. This might be the one scenario where immediate flight could work, because the parent's primary goal is to get you away from the cubs, not necessarily to kill you. Use every environmental advantage available. Dense vegetation, water, steep terrain, or anything that slows the predator while allowing you to maintain distance. Make noise to alert other potential threats in the area. Sometimes predators will abandon a pursuit if they think it might attract competitors or larger threats. The brutal reality is that most encounters with protective parent predators end badly for humans. These situations bring out the absolute peak of predatory aggression and determination. After analyzing fossil evidence, biomechanical studies, and predator-prey dynamics, paleontologists and survival experts have reached a sobering consensus about human versus sabertooth encounters. Dr. Julie Meechan, a leading expert on sabertooth evolution, puts it bluntly. These animals were specialized killing machines designed to take down prey much larger and more powerful than humans. An unarmed human would face overwhelming odds. Computer simulations based on sabertooth bite mechanics and human anatomy paint a grim picture. The sabertooth's killing technique, precise fang placement targeting major blood vessels, would likely prove fatal within 30-60 seconds of a successful attack. Their hunting strategy was refined over millions of years specifically to minimize struggle time and reduce the risk of injury to themselves. Biomechanical analysis reveals that saber-tooth forelimbs could generate enough force to break human bones on contact. Their claws, designed to grip and control animals weighing over 1,000 pounds, could inflict catastrophic damage to human soft tissue and organs. Simply put, we weren't built to absorb that kind of punishment. However, the data also reveals some interesting nuances. Fossil evidence shows that saber-tooths occasionally failed to kill their intended prey. Paleontologists have found remains of ground sloths, bison, and other large animals with healed saber-tooth bite marks, proof that some attacks did not result in immediate death. Dr. Blair Van Valkenburg, who has studied saber-tooth hunting behavior extensively, notes that these predators occasionally broke their famous fangs during attacks. When this happened, their killing efficiency dropped dramatically. A saber-tooth with damaged teeth would struggle to deliver fatal wounds, potentially giving prey animals a survival window. The key factor appears to be the initial moments of contact. Fossil evidence suggests that saber-tooth kills were usually quick and clean when everything went according to plan. But when prey animals managed to disrupt that plan, through struggle, environmental factors, or sheer luck, survival became possible. Modern survival expert Bear Grylls, when asked about prehistoric predator encounters, emphasized that human survival depends entirely on disrupting the predator's plan and creating chaos instead of allowing them to execute their natural hunting sequence. The science supports this assessment. Your survival window exists only if you can prevent the saber-tooth from achieving their preferred killing position. Let's talk cold, hard statistics. Based on modern big cat attack data and extrapolated saber-tooth capabilities, researchers estimate human survival rates in various encounter scenarios. The numbers aren't encouraging, but they're not zero either. Ambush attacks. Estimated survival rate of 15 to 20%. This assumes the saber-tooth achieves surprise, but something goes wrong with the initial attack. Slip on wet ground, miscalculated distance, or prey falling in an awkward position that prevents proper fang placement. Territorial encounters. Estimated survival rate of 40-60%. These scenarios allow for de-escalation tactics and strategic withdrawal. Success depends heavily on environmental factors and the human's ability to read predator behavior correctly. Protective parent encounters. Estimated survival rate of 5 to 10%. This represents the most dangerous scenario, with minimal opportunities for survival, except in cases where the human can quickly exit the territory, or the parent predator is already injured or weakened. These percentages assume an average modern human with no specific survival training. Researchers note that survival rates would have been somewhat higher for Ice Age humans, who possessed better situational awareness, physical conditioning, and instinctive understanding of predator behavior. Environmental factors significantly influence these statistics. Encounters near water sources, rocky terrain, or dense vegetation improve human survival odds by 20–30%. Time of day matters too. Sabertooths were primarily crepuscular hunters, meaning dawn and dusk encounters would be more likely, but also more dangerous due to optimal hunting conditions for the predator. The data also reveals something crucial about predator psychology. Modern studies of big cat attacks show that predators abandon hunts approximately 35% of the time when prey proves more difficult than expected. This suggests that making yourself expensive to kill through resistance, environmental manipulation, or creating uncertainty significantly improves survival odds. Perhaps most importantly, the statistics show that survival often comes down to seconds. The difference between life and death typically occurs within the first 10 to 15 seconds of an encounter. After that window, survival rates drop precipitously as the predator establishes control and positions for the killing blow. The takeaway from all this data? You're facing terrible odds, but the fight isn't over before it begins. Small margins matter enormously in predator-prey encounters. So who wins? The honest answer is that the saber-toothed tiger wins the vast majority of encounters, but not all of them. And that distinction matters enormously because it represents the difference between extinction and survival for our species. The saber-tooth possesses overwhelming physical advantages: size, strength, natural weapons, and millions of years of evolutionary refinement as an apex predator. In a direct confrontation with no environmental factors, tools, or tactical advantages, the human loses decisively and quickly. But real-world encounters aren't laboratory conditions. They involve terrain, weather, timing, injury status, hunger levels, and dozens of other variables that can tip the scales. More importantly, they involve human intelligence, adaptability, and our species' remarkable ability to survive situations that should be fatal. The key insight from all the research is that humans don't survive predator encounters by winning fights. We survive by avoiding them, disrupting them, or making them too costly for the predator to continue. Our ancestors who lived alongside sabertooths understood this instinctively. They didn't hunt sabertooths with spears and bravado. They used fire, groups, shelters, and intelligence to minimize contact and maximize their chances when encounters did occur. Your best-case scenario involves 3 critical factors: environmental advantages that you can exploit, the ability to disrupt the predator's hunting sequence before they establish control, and enough luck to avoid the scenarios where survival is nearly impossible. The most likely outcome remains grim. A healthy adult saber-toothed tiger, employing its natural hunting strategy in favorable conditions, would probably kill an unarmed human within the first minute of contact. The attack would be swift, precise, and overwhelming. But that word, probably, carries enormous weight. It represents the narrow margin that allowed our species to survive the Ice Age while saber-tooths went extinct. It acknowledges that human intelligence, adaptability, and sheer stubborn refusal to die quietly can occasionally overcome even the most overwhelming physical disadvantages. The verdict? In a straight fight, you lose. In a survival situation where intelligence, environment, and desperation come into play, you have a chance. It's not a good chance, but it's the same chance that carried humanity through 2 million years of coexistence with apex predators. The saber-tooth may have been the perfect killing machine, but humans proved to be the perfect survivors. And sometimes, in the brutal calculus of evolution, that's enough. The confrontation between human and saber-toothed tiger represents one of the most fundamental questions in our species' history. How did soft, slow, relatively weak primates survive in a world dominated by apex predators specifically designed to kill animals much more powerful than us? The answer isn't heroic. We didn't survive because we were better fighters or braver warriors. We survived because we were smarter, more adaptable, and more willing to use every possible advantage, environmental, technological, and social, to avoid fair fights with creatures that could kill us effortlessly. The saber-toothed tiger went extinct around 10,000 years ago, likely due to climate change and the disappearance of their preferred megafauna prey. But during their reign, they were the undisputed kings of Ice Age America. Every encounter between our ancestors and these magnificent predators was a reminder of how fragile human life really was, and how much we depended on our intelligence to compensate for our physical limitations. Today, we live in a world where humans are the apex predators, where we've eliminated most large carnivores from our daily environment. But understanding encounters like this helps us appreciate both the remarkable journey our species has taken and the narrow margins that made our survival possible. The saber-toothed tiger represented everything that could kill us: power, speed, natural weapons, and millions of years of predatory evolution. That we're here to tell their story, while they exist only in fossils and museums, is perhaps the greatest testament to the power of human intelligence and adaptability. In the end, the question isn't really whether you could beat a saber-toothed tiger in a fight. The real question is whether you have the same qualities that allowed your ancestors to survive in a world where such encounters were a daily possibility: intelligence, adaptability, and the determination to keep fighting even when the odds are overwhelmingly against you. What do you think? Could you survive an encounter with a saber-toothed tiger? Or would you become another casualty of Ice Age predation? The science suggests the odds are against us, but humans have a remarkable history of beating impossible odds through intelligence and determination. This kind of prehistoric encounter fascinates us because it forces us to confront our own mortality and the incredible journey our species has taken. From vulnerable primates sharing the landscape with apex predators to the dominant species on Earth, that transformation happened because our ancestors faced down creatures like saber-toothed tigers and found ways to survive. Here at Weird Histories, we love exploring these kinds of questions that connect us to our ancient past. If you enjoyed this deep dive into prehistoric predator encounters, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're constantly creating new content about the strange, fascinating, and often terrifying world our ancestors lived in. What historical topic would you like us to tackle next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. We read every single one and often turn your ideas into full videos. Whether it's more prehistoric predators, ancient civilizations, or bizarre historical events, we want to know what captures your imagination. And remember, every time you watch one of our videos, you're participating in the same thing that helped humans survive the Ice Age, sharing knowledge, learning from the past, and building understanding that helps us navigate an uncertain world. Thanks for watching, and remember, you are the descendant of survivors who faced down saber-toothed tigers and lived to tell the tale. That's pretty incredible when you think about it.